For real this time.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fireside Chat number 59. I'm here with my very special guest, Aydin Paladin. Hello, Aydin. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, and I'm
All
Aydin
right.
Paladin. I'll Tom Volt.
Aydin, I only know you as a YouTuber, but are you also a alt-right neo-Nazi, fascist,
Yeah, absolutely. Sig Heil,
scumbag?
1488.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gamergate
Oh,
president
yeah.
or something? Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I'm a very extreme Heil Hitler, of course, as we all are, as everyone, right of Marx is.
That's
An
correct.
extreme
That's correct.
Nazi.
And while you're doing all of this secret uh patriarchal capitalist white supremacist undercover stuff, you have to have like a regular sort of front as a job, right? So what's your front
Right.
job? Do you have like a front job?
I'm a professor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And
No,
what?
that's naughty. I'm not supposed to. It's the kind of thing where there are actual reasons. Like I understand why some people are very nervous about doxing. I do have a reason for that. Do you
Oh,
understand that if
yeah.
people understood that I make YouTube videos of the caliber that I do, that they would, and then they've tried already to contact my university because luckily I go to a pretty based university and they don't give a shit. But if I went to a slightly more liberal one, oh, I would be gone the next day.
Or any other university in the immediate vicinity? When you say liberal university, now where you teach, you said it's pretty based there. Do you find that that's kind of unusual in your profession?
Absolutely, and it's extremely unusual to find because when I first got sort of attacked over giving my opinions on the internet, I got a lot of people coming out to this woman. Yeah, she's a Nazi. It was like, I'm gonna vote for Trump. Like that was that level. And the thing is, like, have you known me for the last 8 years? I voted for Gary Johnson. I voted for Ron Paul. I've always been a libertarian. That's not changed my entire adult life. But for some reason, when the Trump thing came up, it was like suddenly, oh, well, it's a change in the cultural gestalt.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is evil. We cannot allow people to have opposing opinions because it's 1984. It was not supposed to be a handbook.
Yeah. So
And they didn't care, luckily. And now, the problem is that people will take you out of context. They'll take things you say. So I make some a little bit scandalous videos talking about Islam and stuff like that. That's the stuff that could get me in trouble.
yeah, I bet. And so we don't have to go into detail, but I am about like what university you are, but I am pleased because I wanted to get more sort of people that are in that business, in the business of education, on our show. So this is actually a pleasant surprise for me. I figured you had an interest, but I didn't know that you were actually a professor. That's pretty freaking sweet. So,
Well, I'm a PhD student, and part of that means that I have to teach as part of my job. However, I could go to pretty much any shitty university in the country and teach as an adjunct. Right now, if I just gave up, I could do that. So,
yeah,
I've got the master's. I've got three undergraduate degrees and a master's, and I'm working. I'm about a year and a half into my PhD. Well, 2 years now, 2.5 years now. Yeah.
well, Allahu Akbar then. So, what made you want to make videos?
My dad suggested it. Actually, he got tired of me bitching at him over text.
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad is another libertarian conservative,
Mm-hmm.
as I always have been. And I would just be like, did you read this thing today? And I would just text at him, and he would be like, why don't you get on YouTube and be...
So
Like,
basically, why don't you leave me alone and go yell at the
yell at the void.
yeah,
at the
yell
void.
into the void. Throw your message in a bottle in an ocean full of messages in bottles.
Well, my dad's, he's 60 something, so like, he doesn't have a great YouTube acumen, I would say, but he knows Paul Joseph Watson, and he's like, you could be Paul Joseph Watson, or you could be, and he's like, go be PJW, and I said, okay, I understand what you're saying is absurd, but sure, I'll go scream into the void like PJW, and Naked Ape and those guys that I really have looked up to
Can
from
you
YouTube
say-
that I've watched.
Can you say, imagine my shock?
Imagine my shock.
But oh, that's great. You have so your father is in your life then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's something that I often ask myself, because we are a channel that has a focus on men's issues, and a lot of that
Right,
is
exactly.
paternal. Yeah, is a lot of that is fathers' involvement with their families, and I have
Father's
noticed.
involvement is extremely important. All the
Yes.
data show it, and from my personal experience, I can attest to that.
Yes, and I actually have wondered, the people who tend to, have this, like, more sort of libertarian views, like, definitely don't become sort of state dependent folks, or people who think that they need something external, which is, I think, where a lot of this sort of feminism comes from, is this need to belong to something. There's some void in your life.
Yeah,
I
that makes
noticed that
sense.
a lot of them have fathers. They have both of their parents, more specifically, but
Well, my
I'm
parents were divorced. My parents were divorced, but the
uh-huh.
difference is that my father was always involved. And my I mean I could tell this story. I think I've maybe I've told it on another stream, which is that my mom's a very hippie lady. Now she also voted for Trump, but
Mhm.
she was a hippy dippy kind of person. And I remember hearing these stories from when I was like 9 years old and walking up to people and being like, "You're a liberal, aren't you?" And because I could tell from your hippie fucking attitude. So I've always, yeah, that's my father's influence 100%. And I've heard some more, I wouldn't call them men's advocacy people, but a little bit more on the actual misogynists, because they do exist, being like
Sure.
women can't have opinions unless they're influenced by a male figure. And well, I don't think that's the case, but it is true that a positive, strong male figure in your life is going to influence a woman's opinions.
Mhm.
And my father being a strong male figure in my life certainly did. That would be an undeniable fact. I would probably not be a libertarian were it not for my father to introduce me to those kinds of ideas, to introduce me to critical thinking. Now, I probably wouldn't be a scientist if it wasn't for my father introducing me to critical thinking, but
Yeah. All
that
right.
kind of stuff. That's how it
So
happens.
let me ask you this, and this is, we don't normally delve into things like, who vote, like who you should vote for and all
Uh,
that. But if you have a history of normally voting libertarian, why didn't you vote libertarian this time?
Because Al Lepo was insane. He everything he said this past election cycle seemed bought to me, which it wasn't in 2012. He seemed like
Hmm.
he had been bought and paid for. Now Trump was he was the chaos candidate. He he said a lot of the things that Trump was advocating for were things that influenced me to vote for Ron Paul, like the wall, like border security, nationalism, and isolationism potentially, which is what I wanted. I'm not entirely happy with the administration so far, by the way, as I've been very vocal about. Because the things that I wanted was like, I don't want us to be world police. I don't want us to fuck around with other countries. America first. That was my standpoint.
Hmm.
It always has been my standpoint. I've always, in my entire adult life of having any kind of opinion on politics, has been nationalism, because America needs to deal with America before anyone else. That's at least my opinion.
Right. Right. Well, what about that fake heart attack, though? For those of you guys who don't know, there was like a discussion or a
Yeah.
debate of some kind about the dangers of marijuana.
Yes, yes, and
And
then oh god.
yeah, and he faked a heart attack on the stage, which was quite hilarious. Although
It
that,
was funny, but he made the Libertarian Party a joke. And it's
yeah,
not just him. Someone else, I forget who it was. Someone else at like a libertarian conference took all his clothes off and was like dancing naked on stage. And I'm like, I'm going to distance myself from you now. I'm sorry. Bye
yeah,
bye. This is a joke. This is embarrassing. And after the whole Aleppo thing, which is like, what's Aleppo? Oh, please, no, Gary. And you're really not helping your dude, weed, Lamau argument or reputation of the only reason you're a libertarian is because you want to smoke pot.
hmm,
You're not helping. And I'll be honest, I canvassed my university in 2012 with little door hangers to vote for Gary Johnson. I was really on board with the Johnson train, and that did not work out.
Well, how do you feel about how Trump's doing so far?
I think I gave him like a C plus, B
Yeah.
minus on my report card for 100 days. I really don't like that weapons deal, the arms deal that just happened. That was a big, I don't
Hmm.
like this at all.
Yeah.
There's so much media collusion and to destroy him, though, that it's difficult to give a definitive opinion on what's happening.
This is
I'm
true.
okay with but also he is under a unique series of pressures that I don't think any other president has necessarily had to deal with, in that people in his own campaign are out to in his own administration are out to sabotage him because they're GOP neocon politicians who don't want him to succeed because he's an outsider, because he's not a neocon. He's not a globalist. They don't like that shit.
Yeah.
Both the left and the right are against Trump, and it was the American people that elected him based on them being sick of neocons and being sick of globalism.
Yeah, but it seems to me that between the left, the right, the media, academia, and the entertainment industry, they will just burn this entire country to the ground if it means they get to point and say we were right.
Yes,
they will just burn everything down.
Absolutely.
So, and that's
the scary part.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we like to focus on here is the media, because not just because of the presidential thing, but just ethics in journalism in general. Doing a little callback to Gamergate, because of specifically the way the media has covered the MRM, the way the media has covered anybody who's anybody who is right of Mao, anybody who they disagree with. It's brutal. So.
It really has made me sick. So it took me a long time, because why the fuck did it not take me a long time to actually get around to watching The Red Pill? A documentary I thought was well done, and it was interesting to watch it from the perspective of a feminist. And it was stuff like, I was like, yeah, no shit. But, it was interesting to see it. Information that to me is a no-brainer, because I've seen the data before. To see that being portrayed as a revelation to someone. And of course it is a revelation, because the media silences all of that information. The way they've silenced that documentary is absolutely emblematic of that. You cannot give this information to the public. This must be shut down.
And so on your channel, I'm going to relate this back to what you just said. Your videos are more of sort of like a political, cultural commentator. Like, you basically have shit on your chest, you want to get off your chest. And so you want to talk about it. But it's not specifically geared towards anything, like a specific sort of angle. Like, you're not just an anti-feminist or just, talking about the election or global politics. It's like whatever comes across your plate that you find interesting. So when as it relates to men's issues, which is what our focus is, a couple things. One, so you did see The Red Pill, and you enjoyed it, but nothing. What you're saying is that you weren't really exposed to anything that you didn't already know.
No, but I mean, like, to me, again, this is. If I had to say there was a focus to my channel, it's science and academia. The things that I focus on I won't make. Okay. There are a lot of people on YouTube who will react to crazy feminists, or who will react just to politics. I'm not going to react or make a video on anything unless I think I have something scientific that I can add to it that would be informative to people. If I can't give some little tiny, even if it's just a snippet of a social psychological lesson, I won't bother making a video.
Right.
Which is why it takes me forever to make stuff, because sometimes I have to analyze things a little bit more in depth. I think that's not a slap to anyone. That's
No, I hear what you're saying. It's just what you find that is going to, like, get your motor running is going to have this angle.
It has to have
right?
I have to be able to also explain something. It's like so I don't do reaction videos or stuff like that, but I did do one, and it was only because I could see someone using a social psychological tactic, a communication tactic, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that really grinds my gears. But yeah, The Red Pill, I thought it was a really, really enjoyable documentary, but for me, no. And the fact that the information that is presented in that documentary is so apparently anathema to the public that it has to be banned, and I'm like, this is common knowledge shit. My best friend, I would say at this point, my best friend in the universe, he is a lawyer. He just passed the bar in Chicago, and
oh, congratulations! And
to him, yeah.
He should look me up. I'll buy him a drink for passing the bar.
Oh, cool, yeah. But he just passed the bar, and he'll tell me straight up, the law is incredibly against men. And he's a liberal. He's a leftist person. And even he recognizes that, because he had to study the law. That the law is precisely set up to be anti-male in terms of the civil courts. Yes.
Actually, you know what? Now that you say that, I honestly would like to get him on sometime to talk to him about that. I think that would be a really
He
interesting
probably won't,
conversation.
but I'll reach
Well,
out to him.
yeah, well, we could see. I mean, chat. Let me know if you think that would be a good idea. So, go ahead and put a message in. Thanks for that info. So yeah, this is common knowledge, and yet you're right. There are efforts to ban it. Have you noticed that feminism has really ramped up its efforts to like block discussions like this and like reinforce their myths and all that? Or do you
Oh
think this
yeah.
is about the same?
No, they're going to get. This is very typical social psychology, though, is that as your group identity becomes more and more not, I wouldn't say infringed upon, but becomes more and more questioned, your psychological reactance is going to increase. So you're going to react more and more and more as you're being pushed back against. Your cognitive dissonance will ramp up, and the more cognitive dissonance you feel, the more anger you're going to feel as a result of that. This is basic social psychology of, it's no shit they're so terrified. It's no shit that they are fighting against it to such an extreme degree, because this is the psychology of their group narrative.
Yeah, and so I was, you know what? It's actually good that you point that out. That this is the reason, because I was just gonna say, like with the election, well, it's been building for a little while. So like we can go back a little bit. So Brexit, right?
Hmm.
People on the left, and when I say the left, I don't mean everyone. I'm talking about the
Right.
crazy cultural Marxist freakouts. They lost their shit after Brexit happened. Actually, leading all the way up to it, but once it did, and it completely, upset their expectations, they flipped shit, and then the election happened, and they went even crazier, and now we have Antifa comes out of nowhere. I mean, I'm sure they've been around, but them, and you know about that, was it BAM, that like extremely cultish sort of organization that's run by that, I think she's a middle school or high school teacher that runs the
Her name
thing.
is Yvette Falakra. Yes,
Yes.
she is a middle school teacher in Berkeley, California. She actually, if you look at it, they took her to court to make it so she couldn't teach anymore, and she won. She brought in the little children, and they had to say, "Oh, Miss Falakra, she is such a good teacher. She protects us against assholes," or something. It was a repugnant display of indoctrination of children that made me sick.
Yes, exactly. So, what is, I guess, from your perspective as a social psychologist, or I'm sorry, like a professor of sociology? Is that fair to say?
I'm actually a professor of communication studies, but
Communication studies.
I
Okay.
am a media psychologist would be the correct term.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, what's your take on like the what that is about? Like how that happened? Where are these people coming from? Like where are their heads at?
Oh, geez. They believe that they are morally infallible. They believe that you have to understand that the Antifa in particular, they believe without question that what they are doing is fighting the fascist Nazis and preventing them from taking over the world and committing another Holocaust. They believe that in their heads. Now, they're confused as fuck and they're wrong as fuck, but they truly believe it. They believe it because of indoctrination. They believe it because they have been through a Marxist indoctrinated education system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not surprising when you look at their belief system why they have those beliefs.
Yeah. So it's crazy, man. I mean, it's crazy to find someone who works in education that isn't like this kind of nut job. Do you seriously? Maybe a different kind of nut job. I don't know you that well, but but like like do you want to make this a career? Do you think that this is like? Do you have to like keep your views secret, or do you want to be like Jordan Peterson and just put them out there?
Get me tenure, motherfucker, and we'll talk about making this public.
Yeah, right.
The
That's
thing
true.
is, no, it is a different thing. Like, even Dr. Peterson, in the position that he's in as a tenured professor, normally tenure means you can't fire me if I decide to like fucking just take off my pants and show my asshole in front of my class as a lecture.
Hmm.
However, if I said it was postmodern art or something, right? However, to explicate conservative, I would say, ideas, such as Dr. Peterson has.
Hmm.
He can't do that. He is at actual jeopardy in Canada to lose his position. And as a PhD student, which I am, oh fuck, I can't say shit. Now, yeah, I am a professor in terms of I teach. Now, I'm allowed to say that I'm a professor because I teach. However, I'm still a PhD student. Until I get that PhD, then we have to talk about 5 to 10 years of working in academe in order to achieve the tenure track, at which point then I could say whatever the fuck I want. I can't say that shit right now. And actually, I worry all the time. I'm like, someone's going to figure out what my voice sounds like, and they're going to, because I've done public speeches and stuff as an academic, and like my real life personality, someone's going to connect it, and it will become obvious, I think, over time, because my research is very, very specialized. People will figure it out, and we'll deal with that as it comes.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe there's a lot more people in academia that are sort of in the closet about their political views because they're waiting for tenure as well? Or
not just tenure. It's we're not allowed to speak our minds. We can't. And like I said, my university is based. I go to a university that's in a southern state. We don't give a shit about your... I would say if my university had a motto other than the one it actually has, it would be, we don't give a shit about your feelings. We are a meritocracy. This is the most meritocratic university I've ever seen, I've ever been in. That's why I love it. It's a complete meritocracy.
Wow, that is great. That is extremely unusual.
It is unusual. There's not many of us. It's because we're a state-funded university, and if you suck, you get kicked out.
So it's yeah, and I guess it's not one of those Ivy League ones, which seem to be some of the worst ones, by the way.
They are actually. I'm gonna do a video in the next couple of days because it was something that made me so irate. It was finding out that there was this woman who, you may have seen it in the American Mathematics Society blog, posted a blog post that was essentially saying that white male professors should give up their jobs because it's racist and sexist or something. And then the thing is, of course, after she posted this, and it's a disgusting, like, let's decolonize science. Science is evil and racist and sexist, which is, as a scientist, makes my skin crawl to hear that kind of stuff. But I read her doctoral dissertation, and I didn't understand all of it because I'm not a fucking theoretical mathematician. But it's 130 pages, and 120 of those pages are bullshit. It's like comics and just in high school level calculus.
Oh.
And I'm like, and by the way, from Princeton.
Good Lord. Studying
under a Fields medalist scholar, one of the greatest mathematicians currently operating in the world. She got a degree from Princeton. And it does look, now I can't make a definitive statement, it looks like probably her advisor or her husband, who is also a theoretical mathematician, wrote the actual LaTeX math that is in... I'm a statistician. That's basically I'm the stats person. I social science, and it's a joke. But my field is quantitative empiricism and post-positivism, which is, I don't fuck with anything but numbers. So...
Right. And you're not in the business of, we have a lot of studies that come out of colleges, but they're usually attached to a political agenda. So the numbers they're fudged, or the way that they sort of calculate them is, screwy, or there's just something going on. Like the 1 in 5 rape statistic, for example.
No, that is so easily debunked. When you look at the actual data, the data are, on that study in particular, that's the one that always gets cited, is an absolutely repulsive piece of work. As a scientist, it insults me. And I see lots of science. I can't speak. The problem is that even in the quantitative side of social science, I can't fucking say that we're decent, because we have people who will intentionally manipulate the way they get their sample. They will intentionally manipulate the way that they conduct their research. They will intentionally manipulate the methodology. No shit. And I have to shake my head and say, oh, my field is fucked, because unfortunately, I have this terrible thing called ethics that makes me want to make everything about my research as absolutely true to reality as possible, because, oh no, I'm actually trying to uncover reality through statistical methodology.
Right. And this is why, guys, we're not showing her face on the stream. But
you're never going to see my face.
She probably looks just like this cartoon character. Just that's what I think.
Pretty much, more or less.
Did you make that yourself, or did you get somebody?
Yeah, it's my art.
Oh, that's really good. I do a little art myself. So specifically, let's actually, since we're talking about art, one of your videos that got my interest was about comics. And you had one that's Marvel has a pandering problem, not a diversity problem, which I find very truthful, and I agree with it. We talked about this on the show multiple times here at Honey Badger Radio. But someone also, I guess, made a request that you had another sort of more scientific angle on this. Actually, shit, sorry about that. That you had a more scientific angle on this whole deal. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
A scientific angle on Marvel, beyond just knowing what they're going to do, is, and we discussed this a little bit, but like the idea is that I don't know what part Disney is playing in this. In terms of the psychology or the social science angle of what Marvel is doing, it doesn't actually make any sense, because they're not pandering to an audience that buys their books. The thing is, they think that they can pander to an audience that exists, and it's true, the social justice audience certainly exists. The problem is that they don't buy comics. Now, I would use some anecdotal evidence. I remember it's 2008, let's say. No, not that long ago. 2010. I'm going to my local comic shop, and I remember asking the owner of the shop, because we were friends, and I said, how much of an uptick in sales do you get after a Marvel movie comes out? So this is like shortly after Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie was a thing, and it was like Marvel was really taking off.
Yeah.
And he said, maybe like half a week, I see a little bit of an uptick, and then it goes away. It'll be like a couple people who've never been here before will come in and buy a comic. That's the fact, is that these Marvel movies, this pandering shit, it appeals to people who do not buy comic books. The people who buy comic books on a week-to-week basis, who have pull lists, they're not influenced by this. They have no influence on it. And in fact, it's an insult to them. Now, there are some people who are such diehard comic fans, they'll continue to read, they'll continue to buy. The problem is that the people like me who are more like, I buy based on quality, we're not going to keep buying it. It's a miscalculation in the marketing.
Yeah, it's weird that you would say that, because like you would think that the thing is, the content in the books that they're making, where they have, ask me about my feminist agenda, is it Mockingbird? Yeah. And they have like
it's such an insult to me, because she's one of my favorite Marvel characters.
I used to, so I'm an older guy, and I used to read the West Coast Avengers when it was a thing in the 90s, and she was part of that team, and I dug her. I liked her and Hawkeye, and that whole team was cool to me. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and I found it weird that I even have to where we're having this discussion about diversity in comics, because I've been reading them since the 1970s, and I would get a lot of older books too from before that, and I never saw like a problem with that, but this is obviously because the people who are making these complaints are people who don't really consume the product. They just criticize the product. So,
but it's the exact same thing as Gamergate. And Anita Sarkeesian didn't fucking play video games. She admitted it. She admitted she didn't play. I mean, no, she retroactively said, "Oh no, of course I love video games." But whatever. These are people who are not your target market. And as a marketer, as someone who's worked in marketing, as someone who's worked pretty good a lot in marketing, it's stupid. This is very ignorant market research. If you're going to say what they see is that there's the term is that like the smallest group sort of shouts the loudest. It's this extreme minority that is screeching at the top of their lungs to say, like, we want this and we want that. The problem is they don't purchase it. And even if they did, they are still the smallest minority. It's pointless to pander to them. Yeah. Who buys comics? People like me, people who just want to read a good comic book. I would love to have a Mockingbird series where I wasn't upset that Mockingbird had the stupid feminist agenda.
Right. And where she's in the book whining about like how, men have all the powers and she's just some, regular broad, and it just comes across as really, because we went through that book.
Oh, please, motherfucker. As a Daredevil fan, could you please fuck off?
Exactly. And also, again, it's like Mockingbird never whined about that shit like in the 80s. How did she go to become so insecure and, just like, I don't know, just cringy. It's just cringy.
No, but she's been introduced actually with the super soldier serum at this point. So she is beyond. She's a metahuman or whatever. Well, that's the DC term, but she's a metahuman essentially at this point. And it's like if my favorite superhero, my favorite one in the entire world is Daredevil, if it's not fucking evident, that Daredevil, a guy who's like has a handicap. He's max-minning.
Yep.
In terms, if you want to talk about the D&D phrase, he's max-minning. He's got a huge disability that he's sort of overcoming. That's the kind of character I like. Mm-hmm. And it's not just me. If it was just me, I would be the only Daredevil fan on the planet. I'm certainly not. That's obviously a very popular character. Yeah. People like these underdog characters. We want characters that necessarily... And Spider-Man even. Like, when Spider-Man has to interact with the Avengers, he's like, what am I doing here?
Right, feeling outclassed. Yeah.
But I love that. That's what I like when I read Avengers comics that Spider-Man is involved with, because I like the underdog. I like the character that doesn't have incredible superpowers. I want to read about their struggles and their difficulties. That's more interesting to me, and especially a Superman fan as I am, that's more interesting to me.
Yeah, and you can do that without bringing identity politics into it in the way that they often do, where, you know, you make it more of a bigger picture discussion around, you know, being the underdog, or coming in with at a deficit, or, you know, wondering what you can really contribute, and then it turns out that they do come in handy for something. Or maybe, you know, they just sort of make a statement in some way that impresses people. Like, I remember I read the Infinity Gauntlet in the 90s, and I think at this point in the book, and I'm drawing this from memory, so it's been a while, Thanos has basically got the gauntlet and he's killed just about everybody. And then, or at least the superheroes that try to stop him. This is before the gods and shit show up. But
right.
And the last person standing is Captain America. Now, if
oh yeah, I remember this. Yes.
Yeah, and at this point, if Thor couldn't do it, or the Hulk, and all these extremely powerful heroes, then Captain America has absolutely no hope. But the point is that he stands up to him, and he takes it like a man when he goes down. He goes down, but he doesn't go down like a bitch. There. Right.
Take it like a man.
He takes it like a man. And and Thanos defeats him. But of course he does, you know, but the thing is, there's such a it's like one of those, like, it gives me, anyway, I remember at the time, I was charged when I saw that. It's like, oh man, he went down, but he was a badass when he did it, you know, like, for whatever reason. I had tremendous respect for that, because that's the character, you know. He's actually probably one of the weakest Avengers, but still, you know, he's immensely respected and admired, and they look up to him, and he's good at what he does within his sort of, you know, purview. So,
and they had to make it excuse me. So, like, Mockingbird was somehow upset about her lack of powers, and that was absurd. Like, I mean, like, you have to look at something like Next Wave, with all of the strong female characters that we're at, including Monica Rambeau, the second Captain Marvel.
Yep, who led the Avengers.
Who led the Avengers, the second Captain Marvel.
She led the Avengers.
1982. Yep. Like, come on, guys.
Yep.
That was just my irritation.
Don't forget, Wasp also led the Avengers for a while.
Yes.
So
and that's my whole thing, is that's so irritating when it's I feel like it's not irritating. It's evident that the people that they're trying to pander to know nothing about comic books. Because if they did, they would know shit like that. They would know that there's nothing new about having strong female characters. There's nothing new about having strong female women of color, if you want to use that term. That's not new. Who the fuck is Storm? Storm was my, like, role model growing up. I loved Storm. Like, she really was. Like, when I would watch, like, the X-Men TV show and read X-Men comics as a little girl, like, I loved Storm. I wanted to be Storm. As a white girl, I wanted to be Storm. Like, did that affect me? Was it something about her fucking race that would have alienated me? No, not at all. That's absurd.
No, I'm a Puerto Rican kid, and I live in the colorful part of Chicago. I grew up there. And I went and bought comics all the time. I never looked at the race of the characters. I didn't even think about it. I just wanted to read the books. And that brings me back to something else. You were talking about in your anecdote where you talked to the comic shop owner about the uptick in sales after a movie came out. And the funny thing is that I find that the pandering that goes on in the books doesn't match the movies. Like, the movies don't seem to pander that much at all, really. Unless you see something that I don't. Now, I think that it's been changing a little bit more. I think that there is sort of this stuff creeping in. Like, I have this bad feeling about the Captain Marvel movie and the Black Panther movie. I honestly do. I'm concerned that it's going to have that stuff crammed into it. But I'm going to remain hopeful that it won't. But the comics didn't have it. and the films did. So if Marvel really wanted to sell, if they wanted to use the films to sell the books, then why wouldn't they make the books more like the content in the films?
They
Because
usually do like a spin-off comic that is just based on the film universe. They've been doing that for years. But it's the mainline comics, and I think it's not so much that they think that they want to base it on the films, but they're thinking that the film audience, so like the women who go on Tumblr and post about Loki all day, like
yeah, oh my god,
oh my god,
they do the
that
they
they're
do the
gonna
slash
come-
fic of Loki and Thor and shit.
Right. That they want to come into the LCS and they're going to buy this comic. And the thing is that the market data is not there. I can tell you, as someone who's done market research, that's stupid. They know fucking better on some level, but there's someone in their marketing department who's like, no, we really pander to social justice. We'll maybe it's not that we won't make more money, but we'll gain some more popularity or interest in our comics, because comics never do well. Because they know that too, that like I said, like the guy at my comic shop, the LCS, who said, yeah, we don't get a big uptick. They're trying to get the uptick by doing the social justice shit.
Yeah, and they're missing on the thing that the reason why people like the films in the first place, which is that's the thing that blows my mind, is like they like the films because I think that one of the main reasons why the Marvel films are successful is, for once, finally, they made a film based on a comic and they stayed as faithful to it as possible with a focus on having fun with the movie. Now, of course, this has been done before. I mean, Sin City was pretty close. I thought it was great. 300 was really close.
I mean, holy shit, they're about to make fucking World War or Planet Hulk with Thor 3, which I'm excited as shit about. You're gonna make Planet Hulk? Thank you. I've been asking for this for years.
Yeah, and then what else did they do? Well, the Watchmen was pretty close.
Watchmen was okay. No vagina monster.
Yeah, there should have been a vagina monster. I think that was my I was disappointed in that. But but by and large, though, before that, most of the time the studios and production companies were just taking whatever liberties they wanted whenever they made an adaptation, or they were limited by licensing issues. Like, for example, the X-Men would never go and meet the Shi'ar or fight against the Imperial Guard because
Fox owns it. So.
Yeah. But even Fox, if they made an X-Men movie, they wouldn't do that because I think that the reason for it would be that to introduce aliens into a world where there are mutants would just make too many heads explode, and so they didn't want to take the risk. They thought that would be riskier. Basically, the more elements you introduce, even if the source material does have all that, the more of a risk that you take with people saying, well, aliens and mutants, that's just crazy. I don't want to watch that. So I don't think that they went that route. But Marvel's been building their universe slowly. So when Doctor Strange came around and they said, sure, there's magic, then people were like, well, I guess that's okay. I mean, we already have aliens.
I was terrified about Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge Doctor Strange fan. And I was like, they're going to fuck this up. And they did it. They did it okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was like, oh, you introduced magic into Marvel. You did it.
Yeah. I felt the same way. I was like, oh, they did it. They didn't, and the thing is, they didn't shy away. I give them more credit for them not bullshitting us and saying, well, it's not really magic, it's more like high technology, or something,
That's what I was worried about, is that it was going to be an Iron Fist sort of example, or sort of explanation.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, it's just, you can't explain it. I like that. Can't explain it. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. It's beyond us right now, and that's fine. So, anyway, let me see. There was another video of yours that I thought I would ask you about. This is a good one. I thought it's entitled "Bill Nye, the Bachelor's Degree Guy and Science Fetishization." I have taken issue with the way in which the media uses celebrity scientists in order to support their political talking points for years, even when I liked them, and even though I agreed with the science in principle, I thought there was something really shady about the way this worked. I remember on Facebook, there was a Facebook page that was really popular called "I Fucking Love Science."
Yes,
and
I made fun of them.
Yeah, and I used to see that a lot floating around on my Facebook page. I'm an old person, so I use Facebook. And
No, I did too. And the thing that was really upsetting is like I was getting like I'm working on a master's and a PhD, and I see people who I went to high school with, and they're like, I fucking love science because look at this picture of a planet. And I was like, you don't fucking love science.
yeah, exactly.
You want to fucking love science. You go to school and you work 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
Then you fucking love science.
Let me share a photo of that microscopic bear thing that for the 10th time that can't be destroyed or whatever it is. You know the
water
thing.
bear. They're cute.
Yeah, water
they're
bears.
cute. They're cute, but it's like that's not fucking loving science. I talked about that in that video. It's like where I gave an example of me discovering the Proteus effect, which I did in 2009 or 2010 or whatever when I first decided I wanted to be a scientist. And I first read it was the first piece of hard social science I ever read, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. These data, these are astounding. These numbers are astounding, and I knew how to read them because I had learned how to. And that's so baby now in terms of like the shit that I do, but that kind of just astonishing or astoundment with just a data output. Yeah. That's fucking loving science. Just see a data output from a statistical analysis and being like, ha ha, that's loving science.
It's like loving it's loving the methodology. It's loving the process, right? Which is what science is.
No, I like the numbers. When I see your data output, I can see your numbers. I can see the things that you just proved using just a statistical analysis, using a fair and reasonable methodology. That is astounding.
So I use the I fucking love science example as something that I've had many discussions with my IRL friends about, which is what I saw as a growing trend of people loving science, and that just being one example, when they weren't really doing anything, and they were just like, I don't know, it was almost like this popular trendy thing that you were expected to do, and then the prominent figures that were often trotted out were Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, and they were basically the guys that will science, and this is just science TM, like science, not just like science, the process. And it really bugged me. And then because I started to see them being asked to speak on things that I didn't think they were qualified to speak on. Like, for example, I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson is far more the science than Bill Nye is.
DeGrasse Tyson is he's an actual astrophysicist.
Yes, he's an actual astrophysicist. Does that mean, though, that he's also going to be the final arbiter on anything sciencey, no matter what the discipline, no matter what the area? Because I noticed that that's what they usually do. They say, well, since we're talking about, global warming, or we're talking about GMOs, or we're talking about whatever the sort of political discussion of the day is, let's bring on Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'll come out and basically parrot whatever it is they need. And it makes me wonder.
This is Milgram's basic appeal to authority research, is that, yes, the fact is that if you have the PhD, you have the scientific acumen, you have the scientific degrees, you have the scientific research to back up that you have an authority, right, on something. The way that we psychologically process that kind of information is to expect that authority to expand upon all fields, and that is a misnomer, and that is a misinterpretation of reality. However, that is basic to human psychology for us to do shit like that, because we think, oh, this person is an expert in something, we should trust them, they are an authority figure.
Right.
That's normal to human psychology. Problem is, it's not very accurate. It's actually quite inaccurate.
Yeah.
And so no, Neil deGrasse Tyson, yes, he's an expert on certain factors of astrophysics. However, he is not an expert on things like global warming. And this is and it's just like Bill Nye, where we have this, both of them have made statements about that. Now, I don't fucking know enough about global warming, but the only person that I would listen to is someone who is an expert on geophysics, not someone who is an astrophysicist. I need a geophysicist who knows exactly about how the Earth works to tell me shit about that. Otherwise, I'm not going to buy what you're saying, because I understand how science works to a very explicit degree. Even from my field, I can't tell you shit about fields very related to mine. I wouldn't pretend to. And if I made a comment on it, I would preface it by saying, it's not my field.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't do that shit, that's disingenuous. Because I know you don't know it, and I don't have a degree in it. So fuck off. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're smart in everything. I really hate when scientists do that. That really activates my almonds.
Right. Yeah, and I bring this up because it's important for people that are watching that I believe, there is a strong angle that's being played here when you see this stuff get trotted out, often in media spaces and the entertainment industry. Bill Nye's show is absolute evidence of that. It's almost like they're using this, a combination of nostalgia and an appeal to authority, by bringing out Bill Nye to say whatever people want him to about gender, about sexuality, and they use a sort of there's a mixture of the misinformation and a little bit of shame and moral grandstanding that takes place. For example, if in Bill Nye's video, he has like this cartoon of the ice cream. And the ice cream,
yes.
what appears to be an ice cream rape orgy because the vanilla is being forced into something that he otherwise wouldn't want to be. There is a lot of political posturing, moral posturing that happens in that video, and it's important that people know that just because it's coming from someone that you think is an authority doesn't mean that there isn't a political angle. When I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos, which everyone told me I should watch.
It's fine. I think it's very enjoyable.
I did enjoy it. I also watched Carl Sagan's Cosmos from way back in the day.
And even though some of the science in his original Cosmos series has been updated and some of that stuff that he said has been disproven, it's a fantastic show.
Oh, it absolutely is. But the thing that I noticed especially is that his version, the Carl Sagan one, is strictly about education, and there's nothing political, and there's nothing in there. But I think Tyson's has a little bit of that in there. I think he makes it a point to try to he tries to make a point against what he deems to be sort of like, regressives, like I guess what you would call anti-science people or science deniers within his series as sort of like a theme, especially when he goes into the history, like the experiences that Isaac Newton had and so on. And it's almost like stuff that I don't know if it's necessary, and it makes me wonder, because if Carl Sagan was able to talk about it without mentioning that, but Neil deGrasse Tyson couldn't get through it without making sure to bring it up, it makes me wonder.
Sagan was a pure scientist. Sagan was a pure. I mean, yes, he did have atheistic beliefs, but he was a pure scientist. Mm-hmm. As I believe I am myself. We might have beliefs, we might have opinions, but when it comes to science, I'm only here's the thing. When I go in to do a study, I don't give a shit about anything else other than the research, right? I don't give a fuck about anything else. I'm autistically obsessed with making sure, as we all should be as scientists, to control for any outside variables and any outside influences. We should all be aiming for that. Now, unfortunately, I think sometimes I'm the fucking outlier. That there are a lot of social scientists who they don't care if they get bad data. They're just interested in proving a fucking point. That's terrible. That's as someone who's gone through the rigorous education of PhD level research. It's repugnant to me that some people would still intentionally do poor sampling. They would intentionally engage in poor methodological testing. That makes me sick.
Yeah, it's like they're going in with the conclusion and they're trying to figure out how to prove it. I think. Have you seen any of the feminist academic studies and papers? We've actually done a series here. Yep. It was the Doge and Bunny show. Unfortunately, Bunny is taking a hiatus, so we can't do them for now. But we would go through these sort of social justice-y academic papers that would have these robust studies and stuff. Go ahead. What were you going to say about it?
I'm saying when we go to. So as a scientist, what we have to do is that at least once a year, usually about 3 to 4 times a year, we go to these little conventions, right? Where we all go and we present our research. And we travel in packs. So like the quantitative people like myself, people who are hard math, hard science, we all kind of just clump together. And you can tell who we are because we look like normal human beings. And then you look over there. and you see the critical cultural scholars, and they all have blue hair and pink hair, and they're all fat as shit, and they're all headed to their feminist fucking meetup.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all at the same fucking convention, and they're presenting their papers just like we are. Do you think they come and listen to our information? No, they actually think that I have heard from those people that we are the bad scientists because we rely on numbers, and numbers and quantifiable facts are somehow patriarchy or are somehow discriminatory because numbers are mean.
Yeah. Facts are mean. I mean, I've seen there's an article literally that says, logic and reason and evidence are not good ways to reach conclusions about reality. So you have to include feelings. You have to. So anyway,
And I do have blue hair. I would put that out. Someone said that in chat. I do have blue hair, but it's only to bamboozle people. It's only to confuse.
Keep them off the trail.
Yeah. Exactly.
Throw the scent off. I gotcha.
No one will guess.
Do you also have problem glasses? That'll actually.
I do have problem glasses. Actually,
in.
I have thick lensed glasses. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no one will know. Open up a Tumblr blog.
This is important because it makes sure that no one will ever question me, so I can be SJW in the streets and I'll write 1488 in the sheets.
Hey, there you go. So what were your thoughts on science fetishization?
It concerns me because here's the thing. I want as many people as possible to be interested in science, particularly people to be interested in social science, legitimate social science, what I do, which is the quantitative empiricism. I want people to be interested in it. My life goal, if I had one life goal, and I do, and it's this: I want to inspire one student to love my field of media psychology. That would be like I could die happy knowing if that happened. And so I dislike the science fetishization. I like the idea that people are interested in science, but I want it to be legitimate. You can't just say, "Oh, I love this picture of a water bear" or whatever. It's not loving science. Loving science is being a nerd. Being a legitimate nerd, not being a Big Bang Theory. I'm fucking what's his name? Sheldon or something.
Oh,
No, this is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting to me, actually, because I really hate that. Really hate that. I want to actually inspire someone to come in. Like I said, when I first read that Proteus theory study, it blew my fucking mind. Because I was like, oh my god. And I think that when my dissertation finally gets, the research that's based on my dissertation, the dissertation itself will probably be a book, but the research that, there's going to be about 6 studies that are going to go into the dis, and all those studies will be published independently. Those studies my current research is essentially a fuck you to Anita Sarkeesian. It is a giant fuck you. There's that the idea of the sexy video game character making women not want to play games is an absurdity and actually completely incorrect. If not only incorrect, but it's the exact opposite. That a sexy body in a video game actually makes women maybe want to play that game more.
Yeah.
That's what my initial data are indicating.
I mean, Lara Croft is pretty popular with girl gamers.
Okay, hang on. I'll have to find the actual data because I don't have the citation off the top of my head, but the initial data are indicating that what was her diss? There was a dissertation that I am, is this it? Avatar social identity theory. I might have the citation right here. Ooh, there was research though that indicated it was someone else's dissertation. It wasn't mine, obviously. That essentially said that women who played this game, who played Tomb Raider, it made them feel a little bit less. It's called self-efficacy. But the problem is that the way that she analyzed self-efficacy was using a generalized self-efficacy scale, instead of a game-related self-efficacy scale, which there are some German scientists who have created a game-related self-efficacy scale, and that was not the utilized instrument. And additionally, the way that that research was conducted was very poor. It was, in my opinion, to an almost criminal degree, poor research conduction. My research is changing the way that that is examined to examine game-related self-efficacy and the appropriateness of attire in the game. So meaning like if you're conducting a social task, like asking people to agree with you, like in an RPG as you might. So like getting NPC characters to agree with your character to go along with what they want to do, it actually, women will feel higher game-related self-efficacy if they are in a sexualized costume. Actually, higher self-efficacy. I'm trying to find the exact citation. Social dynamic model. Is this the right? I don't think this is the right study. I've got so many studies on my fucking computer. It gets a little bit
a little crazy.
A little bit difficult to sometimes figure out. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Hey, let me ask you this. So we've had game developer David Jaffe on a couple times.
Yes, and I think that is.
He's going to come back again. We're going to talk a little bit more because we had pretty interesting conversations about female characters in media. It started because he made a tweet with a photo of a prom picture. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, with the superheroes and the girls were opening their boyfriend shirts. And well, then he got a bunch of shit for what he said, and then we brought him on to explain because this was kind of when, you know, Gamergate was still pretty heated and all this sort of, you know, talk of sexism and feminism and shit was, it was like, you know, a pretty charged topic. So if you go on social media and you said something about it, you're going to get responses. And then we had him on and explained what was going on. We talked to him about that. And then we brought him back to just talk about female characters in general because he was, you know, he claimed to be concerned because he has a daughter. I'm sure he really is. So this isn't me saying I don't think he is. Let me exercise my skepticism. But we brought him back on to talk about female characters some more. And I gave a bunch of examples of what I thought were good, you know, how you do it well in film and television. So I showed him, you know, Ripley from Aliens and like Princess Leia and stuff like that, right? So I said these are good examples. And I was trying to be clear that there's a difference between that and the sort of ham-fisted girl power feminist versions of characters that they make today because they tend to be very boring Mary Sues that, you know, you never really feel like they're in any trouble and they're not in any danger because there's just too much sexism involved with seeing them, you know, either less than perfect or harmed. So I was trying to make that point. However, something interesting happened. While I was talking to Jaffe, he said, one thing I've noticed here is that all these women, in the examples that you give, are acting like men. And he was thinking, why couldn't a female protagonist be feminine? And
they always do this kind of. That's so typical. Is that like if it's too feminine, then it's sexist. If it's not feminine, it's still sexist.
Well, yeah, but he, I think he was genuinely trying to figure it out. I don't think he was trying to push anything. But
I agree. I'm saying, but like that's the narrative they've sold. Right?
It is the narrative. It is very common, and I didn't really know what. I had to think about that for a while because I was like, well, how do you have a protagonist in a film that's going to have some tension or some danger in it, like if it's not like a drama or something,
right?
And not have them try to perform some feats that would appear masculine, like what, like, you know, it's almost like saying, well, are physical feats masculine traits or not?
Yeah.
But then, so I was thinking about that. I'm like been thinking about this for a long time because actually I'm starting a comic about a female hero. And I've been like thinking like I want to do this in a different way. I don't want to make it political. I don't want to do girl power shit, but I do want to do a female character because I have this concept in mind. That's why, not because it's a woman, but because I have this specific idea. And then something really interesting happened. I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, and yeah, that was great.
Yes, it was really great. But the thing that really stood out for me was Jordan Peterson was explaining where heroes come from. And it has, and how it relates to sexual selection. And what he said is that the reason why we have an archetype for what a hero is because we look at the men who have been, like, throughout time, he's going back, way back, you know. Yes, we look at the men who have been sexually successful and the kind of feats that they performed. We told stories about those men. And then over time, we start telling more stories about more men because those original stories inspired other men to try to perform at that level because they want to be sexually successful, right? And so you have a series of this sort of repeating, and then they ask, well, what's the ultimate man like? What's the perfect man? Well, is that like a god or someone related to one? Like, is that a Hercules figure, or is that a Horus or Jesus or whatever it is? But there is essentially you have this archetype of what a hero is, and it relates to the kind of services that men are that are expected of men in order for them to be sexually successful with essentially what is considered a very sort of like high status woman, which is why they usually call it the virgin, right? And
yes.
So I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, so I understand where this comes from. This is why you have Beowulf and all these like old characters of legend, which superheroes and characters in narratives today are often based on in some capacity. They come from that, which has come from stories that go way, way back. So then I thought, well, if a male hero is based on his performance as a man according to essentially what women look for in sexual selection, then what does a female hero do? Like, because men don't select women for those reasons.
Right.
So that for me, that brings about a bit of a I find that to be an interesting question to think about, because I want to do that. And I'm thinking, well, if what Mr. Peterson says has any, has legs on it, which I think it does, then there's got to be something on the female side that could be just as interesting to explore. And so I was wondering what your thoughts were. I know I'm just throwing this out there, but I had this on my mind for a while. So do you think this is like, this is kind of a tough question?
No, I think, absolutely, that kind of same thing needs to be explored on the feminine side because it hasn't been really.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at this. I did figure out what my thing was. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted, but I did figure out the citation. Citation was it's Ben Moore was a master of 2009. That is the citation of the current research that everything that Anita Sarkeesian has done in terms of her like women are like something about women being sexualized in games.
Oh yeah, sure.
I don't think she knows the citation because she's an idiot, but that is the citation.
If you want to give me, is it like on the web? Like I can look it up?
Oh yeah, sure.
If you
can, the citation right now.
Put the link in here, and I'll put it in the low bar for the folks
let me
watching.
go into my resource. Let's see, my reference
those
section.
of you guys who are in the chat, think about the question that I just proposed.
I got distracted with trying to find this fucking thing, and I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Like Warren Farrell, I'm gonna like reference a lot of other people. Warren Farrell used to talk about heroes. He said hero comes from the word "siro," which means slave. Thank you. And I don't know that that's the intention. I think that slave could also mean servant or retainer, which knights, samurai, and other warriors, that was what they did. They were servants. So they were servants.
Men traditionally have actually been the servants of society. Women have been the higher placed individuals, and it makes sense when you understand women's place in society from a biological standpoint. Of course, we are the more highly valued ones. We should. Mm-hmm. It's not a question at this point. This is reality. Women don't like that because it creates a subversion to the concept that women are somehow persecuted. And I said this earlier in another stream, which is that, like, how difficult would it be? Of course, is it for women to understand that it's like you've been grown up and you've been raised in a society that says that you're oppressed. Everything about you is fucked up, and everything about you is being turned down and shit like that. And then you realize, oh wait, no, that's wrong. It's the exact opposite. You're actually the most privileged and the most worshipped being in our society by virtue of existing. You need to do nothing. Now, of course, it's fucking uncomfortable to accept that fact, but it's a fact you must accept if you want to be a legitimate and rational person. Yeah,
and I mean, like, it makes sense, evolutionarily speaking, because we needed to protect women so that we made sure that the babies, would survive and we would be able to continue on our line. But we live in such a comfortable society now that those dangers to children they don't exist in the same way. So we could start, giving. I think that broadly speaking, what would need to happen is we need women to start taking more responsibility, or taking responsibility on as something that they embrace. And of course, I think that would actually make them feel very fulfilled, because that's one of the things that a lot of men don't, or also would need. But I think that when the opportunity to take responsibility for something comes up, they get pretty excited about it, even if they didn't have an attraction to the idea at first. And a lot of times for women, sometimes that responsibility comes in the form of a kid, taking care of babies.
Usually that is,
Yeah.
where that starts to change a little bit.
Yes, and that actually goes back to what I was talking about with Jordan Peterson, the thing that I brought up to you. And I was thinking about this as far as female protagonists, and I thought, okay, well, we've had stories written about women many, many, many times, and we've had stories that women take an interest in. So what do those stories contain that they're interested in? And this comes out. So, Rye P in the chat said, Jordan Peterson, he figured out the female myth recently. It's Beauty and the Beast, taming the wild male, or taming the man.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, that is absolutely, that is the female sexual desire.
Yes, and the thing is, it manifests not only in Beauty and the Beast and stuff like that, but if you pick up any romance novel, or 50 Shades of Grey, or
when it's Twilight, all of this is taming the wild man. Yeah,
exactly.
That's it.
It's basically. Go ahead.
We desire that on some psychological level. We desire the virility of the wild male in order to rein him in. That's a part of female sexuality.
Yeah, it's like the broken baby bird, or
I've got that real bad. I've got the broken baby bird thing. That's my shit. I go for that so fucking hard.
Yeah, because it's basically a project. Like women like a man that's a project, right? It gives them something to work on. And I know that I'm making generalizations. This is us talking generalizations.
But you're not incorrect. But women make generalizations about men all the time.
Sure.
That's fine in our society. You should be allowed to do the opposite. And you're correct. You're not incorrect. Or I should say you're not incorrect. That very much describes many women, myself included.
Mm-hmm. And that's the ironic thing about that is even though that is the archetype, and even though it's very popular with women who read books, because when you read any romance novel, it's always this savage guy from another tribe, or another sort of another world, a different culture.
Sort of arcade selection theory a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he's he's really alpha, but he's like a wild person, or unpredictable, maybe violent or whatever, and she's going to sort of civilize him. And that's really popular with women. The interesting thing about that is if you made a movie out of that, or you try to tell a story like that, feminists would cry sexism so hard. There's no way you could do that. And they don't. It's like they don't want the stories that women typically like to be a thing that is real, just in the same way that they don't like the stories that men like, which is the stories of heroism and saving the community from the serpent, as it were, in order to get the virgin. This stuff they don't like, even though I don't. I mean,
I like it. I actually love that shit from a psychological and sociological standpoint. I love that shit. But but I am a weirdo, so that's a little bit different. But in terms of what is sexually attractive, no, that's not going to be. It's what you just described. It's the civilization of a man that is sexually attractive to women generally speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's change gears. We're at about an hour. I want to go a little bit longer. Normally these are only an hour, but I do like talking to you. So let's. Yeah,
it's cool. It's a cool time, man.
Yeah, it's a good time. Actually, maybe I can get you back on sometime. I like talking to people who are on the sciencey side. So I find that super fascinating. So let's see. There was. Right. I got to talk about this. Okay, so normally we're just a men's channel, but I have an interest in media a lot, and you recently watched the film Get Out.
Yes.
And I want to talk a little bit about Get Out. So,
sure.
Tell me, what did you think of it? It's just
I thought it was like a mediocre horror film. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I believe was my ultimate score. It was 5 or 6 out of 10. It's like mediocre. It's like meh.
Yeah, I thought I love movies. I watch tons of them. I have a big giant collection here. I'm a cinephile, especially films from the 80s, and 90s. I'm huge into those. And I love horror films too. I watch all the
I'm an
bad
enormous
ones,
fan.
and yeah,
I'm enormous horror film fan. If you did watch a little bit of the video that I did with my friend,
yeah.
we're both horror film fans. He's more of an American horror film fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a foreign horror film aficionado. I've
Yeah.
seen, I'm gonna say, well over 1,000
Horror movies.
Asian horror films. Just Asian horror films, yeah.
I've seen some.
Uh,
I do like them. I've seen some. There was one I didn't that you watched that I actually someone recommended to me, and I still haven't gotten around to watching it. But maybe you can
which one would it have
sell.
been?
Is it two? Is it the Two Sisters?
Tale of Two Sisters is
Tale
the
of Two
best
Sisters.
Korean horror movie ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
fantastic.
definitely watch it. Okay.
Check it out. You're missing out if you haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That was one that I was told I should see, and I hadn't. So I got to remember. And then I forgot about it. But yeah, I've seen mostly Western films, but I've seen some Eastern horror movies too because I wanted to like. I don't know. It's just they're interesting because culturally they just do things differently there, and how they handle it is different. So
I
to
like
see
the
that.
difference of the handling of,
Yeah.
of horror. Western horror tends to be, not always, it tends to be a little bit too, in my opinion, over the top and too obvious. I like obfuscation and I like hidden shit. I like there to be, like, my mind has to fill in the blanks. Because if my mind has to do it, it means I'm going to scare myself more.
Yes.
Because my mind is the most fucked up horror thing that there could possibly be.
Most people's. If you know how to get people to try to fill in the blanks with their own heads, they're going to do it way better than any special effects budget you can possibly come up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Way scarier.
Yeah. And that is a sign of a really good horror film. You can like there are horror films that are rated like PG-13 because they don't have any gore or nudity or too much in the way of language, and they are scary as fuck because of the
I
way
think
that they
The
set
Mist-
the mood and all that.
The Mist might have been rated PG-13, and recently did it. Red Letter Media recently did a review of that film, and that's one of my favorite horror films, Western horror films ever made. Only because it was like, oh, that was so. Don't show, don't tell. That's what I like. Don't show me, don't tell me. Just let my brain fill in the horrifying gaps.
I love The Mist. I have that one on Blu-ray. I love that movie.
It's a really good film.
And I mean, it's cheesier, but I also really like In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, In the Mouth of Madness, because I love Sam Neill, and
Yeah.
yes, I love that film. I love In the Mouth of Madness. Oh,
So,
God.
oh, that's good. So yeah, so Get Out, as a movie, in terms of how it was filmed and everything, I liked it just fine. I noticed
Very competent.
yeah, it was well done in terms of how it was shot. I noticed there was a lot of sort of symmetrical shots, you know, and the way that he did it, like it was very center frame everything, and I observed that. You know, I noticed that as a trend. Actually, for the most part, I don't have too many issues with it, except that, like you said, it's relatively mediocre. As far as the race baiting stuff goes, though, there were many people who told me
I don't know if it was race baiting.
Well,
I actually could not come up with an honest answer of whether or not it was legitimately trying to be race baiting.
well, this is what I would say. When I watched it and I walked out of there, I had the feeling that there was, well, I had observed stuff that I thought would be race baity. However, I also had to think about, am I doing that myself? Because I've seen a lot of content that is
Right.
intentionally race baity, and maybe I'm seeing something, you know, like I just see patterns that I've seen before, and then this bullshit, or is it really there? And what I did was I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to say what I said in that review and what I agree 100%. And I think what Jordan Peele was making fun of, because he said this before, was he was just mocking white liberals having that exact kind of confusion, and even if you're not white, like that confusion of, is this racist, is it not racist? Like, that kind of confusion of stuff is what he was exactly trying to do. I think he achieved that. He certainly did. He confused everyone.
Well, I watched an interview with him. This is sort of how I solidified my opinion on it. I watched 2 interviews with Jordan Peele after I watched the film to see if he was trying to talk about race in a way that, I guess, maybe race baity is not the right word for it, but
Right.
if he certainly wanted to make a commentary about race as a person who believes in white supremacy. Let's put it that way. Like, if he's a person that believes in white supremacy and he wants to put it in his film, and he's, you know, or if he just wanted to make a film and he just thought it would be fun to make it a race thing, like how serious he took it. And in the interviews that I saw, he certainly said essentially what he was doing was he wanted to talk about how even though the characters in the film are not obvious racists, they're still racists, was what he was trying to say. So basically, white people who are friendly with you might still be up to something, as opposed to white people who are just directly unfriendly with you.
Do you think that's what he meant? Because I was confused by that. Because I thought maybe what he meant was just, he was just talking about, or the video, or the film was a look into white people who obsessively and erroneously worship blackness because they've been taught that it is the greatest thing by virtue of this sort of very racist society that we live in that does worship blackness. And if you look at the movie, the fact that it's like, they worshipped the guy who beat him at the running or whatever, I forget what the exact Olympic.
Well, yeah,
black people's bodies are better, they're stronger. That was their whole idea. And so to me, the message was, now I could be wrong, the message was to liberals who worship blackness, who listen to rap on the radio every day, and they're like, oh, we love black people so much, but they've never fucking seen one. They've never seen a black person. And they're just worshiping the concept of blackness because of society. Now that was what I got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that.
Correct.
No, I saw that part of it, and I think that there was some black worship, and that was in the film. But I think that when you pair that, okay, so let's put it this way. This is going by what he said in the interviews too. In Jordan Peele's mind, okay, the white people who are, you say liberals, right? So liberal white people are racist, and conservative white people are racist. So all white people are racist. But
all white people are racist, of course.
In his mind, that's how he's saying it. But what he's basically saying is, there's no need for us to put attention on conservative or racist white people, because we know that's true. So now we're going to show you how the white people that you're friends with are also racist.
I see. And that was my initial take on the film before I watched it. When I watched it, I changed it to being, this is just maybe not saying that all white people are racist, but more of a critique of white people who worship blackness.
Yeah.
And more of like making fun of them and being like, this is insane.
I think he was doing that. I think that we're not really talking past each other. I think that's
I
don't
think we are either. I think that, it's just the question of, it just becomes the question of was it all a criticism of white people being inherently racist? That's really, and I have that question as well, because I'm not sure about the answer.
Well, I mean, like I said, from the interviews I saw, he certainly does believe in that we live in a white supremacist
he does
country,
believe that, which I was upset to see, because I was like, seriously, dude?
And he also does believe that, it's, even as a biracial guy himself who married a white girl,
what the fuck are you doing?
It's a bit weird, right? But yeah, he still has those beliefs, and I think that's what's coming out. I mean, part of me, okay, this is the thing.
Why do all of these racist people, all these black racists, marry white people? Francesca Ramsey, Jordan Peele, apparently. That girl I was mentioning who just got the PhD from Princeton is married to a white dude. Why do all of these black supremacists who hate white people, why do they marry white people?
I think
they're a little bit, so much.
I know. I get that. I think they're a bit angry at themselves for liking white people. I think that they like white people and they can't stand it. It's kind of like like the old stereotype of the very sex negative preacher who has multiple wives or girls on the side, or he's fucking little boys or whatever. I think it's something like that. It's sort of like, what was it? Patton Oswalt made a tweet once where he was like, the social justice warrior, the male feminist who turns out to be a creep is the Catholic priest that turns out to be a pedophile of the millennial generation. It could be that. I don't know for sure though. I'm speculating here. It does surprise me. One of the things that I think blows my mind about that, and this is the thing. I guess in the case of Peele, this is the thing that I gotta point this out. Even though he's a biracial dude, he surrounds himself mostly with other black folks. I have to wonder
Yeah.
if the pressure from, because as a person who lives in a black community, I've noticed that the the most sort of like social pressure for blacks to behave a certain way or to have certain views comes from within the black community itself. There is
Of course.
expectations that people have of you. So if you start to talk to white, they have a problem with that. If you're dating
Yeah.
outside of your race, they have a problem with that. If you, if you want to get out of the neighborhood, like if you just want to like get a better life and get better educated and get a good job and move out, there are real problems with that come from within the community itself. It's people dragging each other down. This is
Yeah.
very common and absolutely true, and not just within the black community, but also with Puerto Ricans like
This is
myself and stuff.
very, very typical social identity theory in terms of maintaining the in-group status. This is Tajwal Turner, 1974. This is absolutely in line with all of extant research on social identity theory.
Yeah.
Because it means that, yeah, groups tend to maintain themselves in the face of sometimes absolute retardation. But, yeah, it happens. It's social identity theory.
Absolutely. And so when and I know that happens, and my guess would be that in the case of, because like, how, if you're a biracial person, do you make how do you make peace with your ideas that your mother or father, whoever the white one is part of a system that is built to control you? Like Colin Kaepernick, he's biracial as well. It's the mediocre football player bench warmer that essentially only became famous because he decided to become an activist in the middle of his football career. I put that in quotes.
Yeah.
But so, I have to ask myself, what is the issue? It seems to be an identity issue for sure, and I think it's bleeding into their everyday life, and maybe they're overcompensating. Maybe that's what that is. It's like a need to prove that despite the fact that they're essentially composed of two sides of a given discussion, they have chosen their camp, and it is with the oppressed.
It's very interesting because it confuses me, because it seems that these minority communities have taken up the white nationalist or the white supremacist argument of the one drop rule, where it's like, you're one drop of black, I'm now 100% black, and that means I can claim all kinds of oppression and shit. Yeah. Because is that not the more comfortable way to be? Is it not?
Well, victimhood is
just like with women, like we can claim all this shit in the racial component of that. If I can just claim that I'm a race, it doesn't matter if it's one drop. If I can claim it, I can claim oppression. And then you win. You win at life, essentially. You get... I know people don't like that, but you get affirmative action, you get all kinds of special treatment. I mean, like, if you look at the actual statistics of, like, university acceptance, if you're black, guess what? Sorry, it's reality. Your ACT and SAT scores are massive points lower for the same acceptance. And that's affirmative action work, and that's Title VII. That's everything about... No, like, that's in the law, by the way. Our law in the United States is designed through Title VII to give that sort of preference towards people who are minorities. So is it any fucking wonder that the people who, even if they are mixed race, would obviously identify with the race that gets the benefits?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm just speaking from an economical perspective. Sorry, like...
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, if it would work out in favor of another race, and you'd see a trend there as well. Like if it turned out that it was white people that were going to get the benefits of...
sure, then they identify as white.
Yeah, you're just going to see it happen that way. So it's true. So, yeah, well, anyway, I could go more and more into it, but there were some... I want to nitpick this movie a little bit, though, because I thought it was kind of funny. There were some things in there that made no sense, and it's actually the reason why I ended up not digging it as much as everyone else did. And... as an aside, the fact that it got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes is obviously
That
political.
was, yep, that's
It's
politics right
that is
there.
politics, or it's nobody wanting to give this movie a bad review because they're afraid of what the repercussions are, which
I
is
didn't think it was a bad movie
politics.
even. I thought it was like mediocre. And I watched it. I feel like they didn't even fucking watch it. If they watched it, maybe they understand they'd have the same review as I did, but they didn't fucking watch it because
Well,
they
that's
can't
just
watch
it.
that shit.
I mean, since the votes in Rotten Tomatoes are come down to like a binary system, triggered binary, then you're either going to end up, like anywhere less than, I don't know, like if you're doing a 5-star review and you say it's 3 or 2.5 stars, that might come out as rotten on Rotten Tomatoes scale. I don't know how exactly to do the math on that, but nobody gave it less than, oh my god, this is so good, and if I was, to be honest, if I was Peel, I mean, yes, you have to know on some level yourself. It's like, wait, my movie is more highly rated than Toy Story. My
The
movie
thing
is
that now I'm going to preface this with the anticipation that Jordan Peele was incredibly aware about what he was doing. In which case, he was making a movie that was mocking white people for pointlessly worshiping blacks for virtue of being black. And what did they do?
Mm-hmm.
They pointlessly worshipped his film because he was black.
Yeah.
That's some insane level of meta irony that I don't even know how to describe. I mean, that's like, well, you proved your fucking point, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Although, I guess he doesn't have to worry about them trying to harvest his parts. But
yes, but if his whole point is that like whites are so they love the blacks so much deep down, we're all trying to like just seek out their shit because he's talking about white liberals who do worship blackness, who listen to Kanye West.
Well, they want to become black.
Yeah, they
want to take their bodies.
And yes, they want to take their bodies, but they don't want any of the social stigma, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's incorrect in thinking there are people like that, because there certainly are.
Sure.
But then they fucking proved it by giving it 100% or 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. You proved it. You proved every point he was trying to make, even if he wasn't that smart about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so let me so my nitpicks. All right, one of the biggest one, and I don't know if this I brought up, and my wife, she watched it with me, and we talked about this. All right, I had to kind of explain it because she didn't quite agree with me at first. There's the lottery scene. Guys, I'm sorry, we're going to spoil the movie. So if you don't want to listen to this part, if you want to watch it, spoiler alert. Okay. So he goes to his, the parents' house, and at one point they asked him, are you going to stick around? We're going to play, what is it, bingo later? Yeah, we're going to play bingo. And he's like, no, that's okay. I'm going to, go for a walk or whatever, go get some air. And he goes for a walk with his girlfriend to talk to him about some experience that he had that he was uncomfortable with, how uneasy he feels in this sort of environment. And while he's gone, they play bingo, which is really an auction for to harvest his parts. Now, the reason why I took issue with this bit was he was invited to play the game.
Him, didn't they?
They did. The father said, do you want to stick around? We're going to play bingo. And he said no. Now, if the guy had said yes, then he would be sitting there watching himself be auctioned. Okay?
That's true.
That does not make sense.
No, yeah, I didn't even remember that part. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, so that was one. That was a nitpick that I had, because I was like, why would you invite? The only reason why that was put in there was because Peele wanted us to know that they were going to play bingo. And that was it. That was basically exposition without making it in an attempt to not make it obvious. But once
that's a legitimate criticism of the film quality of not anything else involved with it.
Yes,
that's a legitimate criticism.
I mean, I'd like to see the alternate cut where he actually shows up and he's watching what's going on and what would happen afterwards. So that was one. Another thing is, and this is actually another one is, I don't know how he got the cotton into his ears. Like, I actually did try to do that, and I'm just not that flexible, maybe.
Yeah, how did he put the cotton into his ear? I thought about that, too, because that was weird. Like, how he managed to get the cotton just from digging up the sides of the chair.
Yeah, and get it into his ear. Yeah. And it was really in there, too. Another thing is that putting cotton in your ears does not deafen you. That's like some
No.
cartoon shit. That doesn't actually work. That's like something Sylvester would do.
Well, I thought at that point the movie had moved into such absurdity tier. I was kind of
Yeah,
okay with it
that's
because
true.
everything after that point was just like, we're just gonna like murder the shit out of people.
Hmm.
So it had become very ridiculous. So I was willing to suspend my disbelief
Yeah,
for a little bit
usually
of it.
that's like the third act, so people are usually suspending their
Yeah.
disbelief at that point. But it was just something I noticed. Again, it's not hurting the movie much more than it already had hurt itself. Um, One other thing was on a meta level. So I'm gonna back out of this a little bit with two other things. One, I was a bit disappointed in the way they handled it because here's the thing that I had noticed, and this is how I know when Jordan Peele says, "Oh, I think we live in a white supremacist society where all white people are racist, or at least the vast majority." And the reason why I know this is sort of true is that he believes this, not that it's true, but this is what he believes, is there isn't one redeemable white person in the entire film except for the cop in the beginning. And
Yeah, that's true.
he's the only one, and even then, there's still like this deep shadow of doubt that's cast on him because he asks for the ID. And even though he explains the standard procedure, we're meant to feel really uncomfortable and uneasy with him there. But aside from
Yeah,
that
exactly.
character, nobody else is redeemable, and it actually kind of disappointed me because I think it would have been a nice twist, and I'll tell you why. I know we're still spoiling here, but this is what I think would have been good. When the son is introduced, so like the girlfriend's brother, okay, he shows up and he's kind of drunk and he's like disorderly
Yeah.
and he doesn't get along with them very well. I thought that what they were going to do, and maybe it would have been a bit predictable, but I actually kind of wanted this. What I thought they were going to do was they were going to make him the only sane person in the film, like the
Yeah,
good
but
person.
he's not. He's another wrangler, I guess. you could
Yes.
call him.
Yes. Well, he was the one from the beginning that one
Yeah.
grabs that one guy. But I thought that he would be the guy who was like either he had been doing it for a while, and he was just getting tired of it, he didn't want to do it anymore. Somebody who had been fed up with the system. Like
Oh yeah, that would have been interesting.
I know there's a character that's within that actually is like, look, I want to get out of this. Like I hate this place. It's a hellhole. Whatever. Let me help you or something.
Or to,
right?
yeah, to just have questions about what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, that would have been interesting. It would have been way better, actually.
I think so too, and I was actually disappointed that he was just as bad as everyone else. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I knew the girlfriend was bad, but I was hoping that because it's like you want to sort of throw off people's expectations. So
Right, yeah, you should.
Yeah, so like if one of the good twists is that the girlfriend is one of the bad ones, that's a good twist. Although if you're paying attention, you get to a point if you're observant that you might be like, well, I think she might be in on it. But you can also throw another one in there by saying, okay, which character looks like he's the most trouble, and let's say he's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Right?
then if he subverts expectations, so that would have been more interesting.
Yeah, and that was what I was thinking. And then, like, my other more meta question is, why is it, this really bugs me, every film that has, well, I'll say every film, okay, there is a overwhelming majority of films that either star, directed by, written by, or all three involve black crews, cast members, and writers. And the stories always have to revolve around race. And I say, why is this? Because
Yeah.
I think that I think it would be really good for people who want to create content that are, minorities, whatever, that want to make stuff, but they want to do stuff that's outside of that extremely limited spectrum that you could work within. Like, why?
So I think,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I agree with you 100%. I think there's some perspective among those communities that, like, if you're going to make your own content, it has to be focused on your community because you're under some sort of obligation, which is absurd.
Mhm.
And that's why I really respect when I see directors or actors or artists or whatever who produce art that is not based entirely on race, because it means that you are essentially able to overcome the very, very lucrative, by the way,
Yeah.
drive to just produce racially based bullshit.
Yeah, I know that there is like some financial incentives, although I think that a lot of films that are directed at black audiences, they don't tend to do really well just because there is such a small black population. And a lot of times
Oh,
people
it's
have,
12% of the 12% of the United States population. However, they make tons of money with the perspective of the population they're aimed at in proportional sense.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Medea movies still make a lot of money for some fucking
It's not
reason.
even
So.
about the money that they make. It is about the money that they get to be made.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right, right, right. So they get the money that right. They get a lot of support.
Hmm.
Yeah, it would have been, but I mean, like I say, this is a person who wants to see more creative works by different kinds of people with different ideas,
Same.
and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of it, like is limited by the essentially the identity politics of the day. Whether it's
Yeah, we can't do much. Like it is a problem because it's like I would feel terrible. I'm sure like a young black person who wants to make a film, you think they don't get pushed into that shit of like, oh, you're a black person? Doesn't matter if you're a male or female. Oh, you're a black person? Why are you not wanting to make a film about being black? Because that should be
Right.
what your entire desire is it not?
Yeah, exactly.
I guarantee that's what that gets into when you get into Hollywood and you actually have an ability to make a film. Like all the big films that are made by black people always end up being about blackness. I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, or whatever. Yeah, or being
I
gay
don't
or
think-
being trans or
yes,
whatever.
all of it. All of it. It has
Yeah.
to be about your identity. It's all about identity politics. It's fucked up.
It is. I wonder sometimes if it isn't like there are some black directors or female directors or whatever that are basically like, I want to make a movie about X topic. Here's my script. I've been working on this forever. And it has nothing to do with identity politics. They just happen to be of that other sort of race, gender, or sexual orientation, and they just have an interest in this topic. But they're not getting the support that the person who's like, oh, look, I'm a trans person. I want to make a movie about trans people. And then people are like, oh, my God, like shower her with praise because they're going there. Let's give them all the money. I wonder if it's virtue signaling with checks, basically. I wonder about that. I don't know, but I wonder about that. So anyway, what was that? You're going to say something?
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I was just sighing because it's sad that that's
Oh,
the case.
yeah.
That is the state of artistry in cinematography and Hollywood.
Yeah. All right. One last thing that I forgot about before. I want you to
Sure.
be able to talk about. And then we're definitely going to close out. I'm sorry. This has just been a little bit
No,
longer than
it's
normal,
fine.
but I don't mind. All right. Comedy. All right. So you made a video called Amy Schumer Comedy and Memeology. Why the right is funny. So I want to know, as a person who voted Democrat until this last election, one of the things that I had noticed is in the past, when I was younger, the sort of the right wing came across as unhumorous and stuffy and controlling and it was often presented like through media and stuff that they were this way, but you also saw examples. Like it wasn't just like out of nowhere. You would see examples of this.
Absolutely.
And now it seems like things have flipped. And I noticed that the not just conservatives, but anybody who's not sort of a far left nut job, the people who are on the left but reasonable classical liberals, moderates, independents, conservatives, and libertarians, they tend to be a lot funnier these days. And I noticed that there's a flip. So what I want to ask you is, what have you observed about this whole thing?
So the basic issue is the idea of political correctness, because if you're politically correct, for example, you cannot break the mold of certain ideas. You're beholden to certain stringencies, right? Of like, these are the things that you can talk about, and these are certain things that you can be honest about. Now, honest is in quotations because you can't be honest about shit if you're on the left at this point. The left and the right have flipped, and you're correct, they have flipped in many ways. It used to be that the religious right couldn't take a fucking joke. Now, under like political correctness, the left can't take a fucking joke. They absolutely cannot take a joke.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot joke about anything. You literally, if you joke about something, even something that's benign and that is safe, you're gonna quote trigger someone. Someone will get triggered on the left and they'll cry, and then that has to be a whole new article because oh no, it upset this person because they identify as an Apache attack helicopter, and oh no, oh I'm so sorry. That is the whole problem, is that the left has become so sensitive, they cannot joke about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, let's say 15 years ago, when you would see the blue collar comedy tour, for example. So like Ron White, Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, the Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy.
He was not funny, but the other guys actually were entertaining. I still listen to old Ron White humor comedy pretty much every day. I listen to it sometimes when I go for walks on Pandora. And that shit was actually funny because it was willing to break some molds. But the fact of the matter is the left cannot make jokes when you have engaged in such stringent and extreme social justice advocacy, because it means you can't make fun of anything because you will offend somebody. Humor is reliant on the very basic principle of expectation violation theory, which is Judy Burgoon. Look at Judy Burgoon's research on expectation violation theory. That's the basic citations. And Burgoon's research indicates that, like, yes, you require something to upset your expectation in order to find it funny. And it's not just her, it's also Melanie Booth Butterfield. Melanie Booth Butterfield's research also, and her husband, both the Booth Butterfields' research on humor theory indicate that yes, it has to be right in this sort of sweet spot of being offensive and being relevant.
Right.
If it's too offensive, it's not funny. If it's like too soon, it's not funny. If it's too far away from the event or too far away from the subject that it's old news, it's not funny. You need to find the sweet spot in between of just being pretty much offensive. That makes something amusing. That is supported by hard scientific data.
Yeah.
I'm not making that shit up. I'm talking about fucking science. That's what humor is. Like, we can study, we do study science, or excuse me, we do study humor scientifically. That is humor.
So why is it why does the comedy that comes out of the let's say the more lefty media, why does that turn out to be so cringy and not funny? It's not
violating any expectations. You're not violating anyone's expectations. You're just repeating some kind of dribble. That's not upsetting anyone. You need to upset an expectation. Again, this is Judy Burgoon's research and Melanie with Butterfield's research. You have to violate some kind of expectation in order for it to be interesting. Otherwise, it's just boring.
Yeah.
This is very basic social science. You have to violate the expectation. Otherwise, it's boring. Otherwise, it's stating a fact, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Or stating a false fact.
Another thing I think is missing is that I think really good comedians have to be able to laugh at themselves. They have to be able to make fun of themselves.
The left can't do that.
Yes,
they
can't do that right now. It's too sensitive, right? Like it's not right. There's like essentially a moral premise that's set that you cannot make fun of these people or people who defend those people. So no matter what, right? So that means that if I make jokes, it always has to be at the expense of my enemies, or as Anna Kasparian, I think, said, you have to be punching up. You have to. Yes.
That's how they think. The interesting thing is that they're always punching down because they are the ones in power, which makes it extra unfunny, by the way. Because when you're punching down like that, regardless of how much she claims she's punching up, Anna Kasparian and the Young Turks are the legacy media.
Yeah.
Fuck them. They may claim otherwise, but that's a lie. They're the legacy media, and they may claim they punch up. No, you're punching down because you're punching down to the people who have less social power than you. That's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's not funny to make fun of retards, for example. Like, if I just when I'm like, ha, you're retarded, that's not funny. That's mean and evil. That's a terrible thing to do. And I'm not saying like the right is retarded. I'm saying like that's a person with a power disparity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's socially speaking. Now, she thinks, when she says shit like that, she thinks that position is being reversed, where she's the person who's retarded punching up. No, that's not what's happening. It's her punching down on someone with a significantly less power differential.
Actually, sometimes the fact that the person they're criticizing has less power, as you put it, that's actually the crux of their joke. Like that's like they actually make it
Yes.
obvious in their criticism. Like they might say, well, this person has far fewer subscribers than us, so let's make fun
Yes,
of
they do.
them. And then they'll
That's
say, but you should be punching up.
when they do that, that's the worst thing you could possibly do, because when you make fun of a power differential like that, that's inherently unfunny, because people will always root for the underdog. This is a basic part of human psychology.
Mm-hmm.
That is not smart. Okay?
Well, nobody said that
Not
they
smart.
were smart.
Oh no, the young Turks are retards. They are the real retards. They're idiots.
Yeah.
The thing is, but they think they have their shit planned in a way that they think they're doing something intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually doing very much the opposite. And it's like if I was working for the Young Turks, which I would never do in 1,000 years, I would be like, you guys, do you have anyone telling you how to run your shit? Because
Mm-hmm.
some kind of psychologist, some kind of social scientist, because all these media programs should have a social scientist telling them how to interact with humans. Well, apparently they don't have one. I don't know. I would
Yeah.
work for them. But I'll criticize the fuck out of you. Good night. I'm a media psychologist, motherfucker. I'll tell you about exactly how fucking screwed and retarded and stupid your tactics are. You will not win by doing this. You make yourselves look like assholes.
And this bleeds over into the memes or the memes for those of you guys
Mm-hmm.
who know. So the memes was like one of the biggest things that revolved around this year's election, for example. I mean, they're hilarious. I was dying. This whole like all of 2016 was just fucking funny as fuck, right?
2016 was the greatest year. Just for memes.
Yeah, but just for memes, right? It was like the Cambrian explosion of memes. And one of the things that someone who I talked to on Facebook that I'm friends with, he has his own meme that's called the left can't meme. And
They cannot.
so you in your video you talk about, I guess you have this term memology. So I guess what I was going to ask you is why is this related to what we're talking about first of all? And then what is the difference between the left's memes and the memes that basically, I wouldn't even call them right-wing memes, but the memes that are everyone finds so funny and actually pretty influential?
So there's a lot involved in this. Shall I get too far into the psychology? So there's the pseudopsychology, which is something called a morphogenic field,
Mm-hmm.
which is that the idea that a shared idea is basically transferred across human consciousness, across the entire existence of human society. Now that's faux psychology, that's fake shit. That might exist. We don't know. I mean, I don't know. Believing in Keck certainly made me have a little bit more respect for that concept of morphogenic fields. On the other hand, there is the actual data that we can look at, which are going to be the data that come out of social identity and social psychology and group identification theories. So this is going to be Tajfel Turner, 1974, as the primary source, Allport, 1952, and Goffman, 1954. These are going to be the primary citations that I will give for this research, which is that generally speaking, we tend to use what we call exemplars or identification symbols, such as memes, to signify our association with a group, right? And as the internet has become more and more prolific, the group identification theories, such as with Ian Bailenson Proteus effect theory, and with other sort of research into the construction of intergroup effects in online environments, it makes sense why we would use signifying items such as an image or a meme in order to express our intergroup identification.
Like
Sorry
Pepe?
if I get a little bit too academic. I get a little bit faggy.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I like it. Like a Pepe.
A Pepe is a symbol of intergroup identification because it's a mutually understood symbol of group identification, right? Memes are inherently, as we get into the de-individuated anonymous or pseudonymous online environment, memes are an important part of establishing a group identity or establishing membership in a shared group identity. So as such, we must maintain our use of memes in order to share that I am part of this group or I am not a part of this group. And it is the use of memes and memology, if you want to use that term, that establishes shared intergroup relationships.
Mm-hmm. Ah. Okay, so when the left does it, they how are they doing it wrong?
The problem is that they don't have a shared group identity, not in the same way that we do. We have a solidarity through not just the use of memes, but the use of our shared words and the use of our shared linguistics.
Mm-hmm.
The left has no such thing. There is no group identity among the left right now.
Well,
There's no group identity.
it's probably because they're divided along racial, sexual,
Yes,
and gender
exactly.
lines, right?
They have divided themselves
Mm-hmm.
among such stringent lines that they have no overwhelming group identity. As such, now you can have minimal groups, which is basically like we have groups among groups among groups among groups in terms of social identity theory. The right, on the other hand, although we do have minimal groups that are divided within among our own prescriptives and among our own social classes, they are much less divisionary. We are more cohesive and we are more together under the banner of a shared social goal of removing communists and removing shit from our
Mm-hmm.
society, and making sure that like the stuff that we are involved in is cohesive and cogent.
And dank.
And dank. Dank
Yes.
is a good thing too. To be a little bit more or less academic, yes.
Right. But the fact that I can say dank and you know what I mean is proof of what you
Yes,
said,
exactly.
right? With the shared language.
That is an exact, yes, that is an exact, precise example of how the right has been able to utilize linguistics to form a cogent and cohesive group identity. And it doesn't matter if you're actually part of the right, because we're not right and left as we once were in the United States, or in politics in general. We are no longer right and left. We are now anti-communism. We are now anti-extreme identity politics and hardcore leftism.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we are. This is not right versus left. This is we are a reactionary movement, and reactionary movements are always going to be more powerful because reactionary movements, of course, are reacting.
There you go. Praise Keck, then.
Praise
Well,
Peck.
I think that that was good. I think with that we should wrap it up. Aydin, is there anything that you wanted to say before or any questions you have?
This was a great conversation. Anytime you want to have me back or whatever, that's cool. I hope I didn't go off on a little bit too much of an academic tangent there at the end, but
No. We like that. We like that. We had Jordan Peterson on here before.
Oh, did
and
you?
That was
That's
extremely
amazing.
academic. Oh, it was super amazing. We're hoping we
yeah.
can
Oh
get
my
him
God,
back
he's way
on.
more. He's much more intelligent than I am.
Yeah.
So
He's great. He's great. So so we've had academics on. I had a guy from Loyola University here in Chicago on a couple times. He's a gay man that's written books about masculinity. I've had.
I'm so happy that I sometimes
yeah.
worry because I know that when I've done streams, sometimes people will be like, will say things like, "I don't understand what you're saying because you not talk that way."
Oh no, I like it. I mean, like I'm more of a layman myself, but I find it.
No, I love it.
fascinating to
I
talk
love
to
it. I
people,
love that people also enjoy
Yeah.
the academic expression. However, yes, I didn't know you had Jordan Peterson, but I thought you did have, but I wasn't sure. He's a great guy. It was an extreme honor actually to be on here. Yes, thank
Oh
you.
well, thank you. And maybe would you like to come back sometime?
Invite me anytime.
And anytime. All right, Aydin, I might hold you to that. Well, guys, you should definitely go to Aydin Paladin's channel. It is good shit. There's lots of videos. She hasn't been around for that long.
Only since January.
Only
Yes.
since January, but she's got like 20 some odd videos, and they're good. So go check them out. Aydin, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh no, it was a really good time. Thank you guys for watching. And if you have any thoughts about anything that we talked about, please leave in the comments. And remember, when this show goes off air, it's also going to go unlisted. So you're going to have the link, and that's just so that we can. We're basically trying to protect ourselves from the crazy YouTube algorithm bullshit. So until further notice, we're unlisting our videos after they go up. But an abridged version will be going up tomorrow. If you have access to the original link, just go back and watch it and leave some comments. I like to read them. And what's up? Yourmoviesucks2.org. See, he's in the chat. So
Your movie sucks. Adam
Yeah.
is in the chat.
yeah.
Adam, I love you. Holy shit.
All right, Adam. Thanks for coming on. No, but seriously, Aydin, thanks for joining us on the Fireside Chat, and we will talk to you next.